Alright guys, welcome to VALORANT News. Major roster updates going down yesterday. Gen.G officially confirming that LAKIA is back in their lineup. They're making big changes, it seems, going into the end of the season to try and give themselves a better chance of getting over the line at the big one. Is it going to be a six-man roster? What actually is going to happen over there? And also, what does FNS have to say about what's happening right now in the Americas? Some debate on who's the better duelist. Is it OXY? Is it Zekken? FNS says this is absolutely not a debate at all. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Just a bit more Game Changers drama. We saw yesterday this player, Majamia, got bans from the Game Changers tournament for making some comments that were translated from Turkish. And as they say at the end of this tweet, to go ahead and have another one of my tweets translated because, you know, doubling down to say the very least. Mel was actually in the reply to this, giving her perspective on it. So I just thought I'd, you know, scroll through that really because as we know, Game Changers, the drama with that scene is only ever just around the corner. But we actually had a big update last night in the Game Changer scene, and that was with another big organization actually getting involved. It's been a big talking point, as we know, over the last couple of years, the state of Tier 1, the state of Tier 2, and the state of Game Changers, especially Tier 2, the number of organizations that are actually interested in getting involved in Tier 2, staying around in Tier 2, seeing the return in Tier 2. But 100 Thieves, they see the return in getting a Game Changers roster. So it's cool to see them, you know, supporting that scene because, you know, look, organizations don't do stuff that they expect to lose them money, right? Like, this is clearly a decision made with the intention that it's going to be a positive for the shareholders. And it's good that the scene is in a spot where organizations think in that way. Whether it is or not long term, we'll see. Of course, they will need a decent roster to make that happen, but 100T confirmed they've signed a contract, and then they confirmed yesterday that this is their new lineup. So, you know, some old school names really here in the Game Changer as well. Jazzy, for example. Now, Lydia, you may know Lydia because she was formerly known as Tupperware. And yeah, Tupperware, you guys probably might remember when she was competing, she's still competing, but now she's got under a slightly different name. Maybe better from a brand perspective, or maybe not. I kind of like Tupperware, but tweet your thoughts in the comments below. So they made their debut last night as a new team, and they got the win. It was a hot little 2-0. So GG's 100 Thieves Game Changers off to a good start. But the other big drama of yesterday was Gen.G, at least from the roster perspective, because they have brought back LAKIA. So he's made the glorious return. He last played for the org, Champions 2024. They made a couple of moves, and, you know, LAKIA moved on, and of course, you know, the intention was seemingly always from LAKIA's side to eventually come back, and now that is what is happening. So the LAKIA of VALORANT is back in VALORANT, playing for Gen.G again, and this is, you know, a big move, right, because Gen.G have had an up and down season. Obviously, Champions have just been announced in Shanghai for 2026. We know that in Shanghai, Gen.G and LAKIA had a pretty damn good result last season, but then things have changed on that lineup, right? It's now Munchkin, Foxy9, Ash, Texture, and Karon. That's the team of 5 that have had good results this season, but not quite to the level that they would like to be at so far. Of course, you know, they made it to the playoffs for the EWC, but in the end, they lost to Heretics, of course, on their way to make it happen. They beat Paper X in the consolation final to come third in the end, but you know, maybe the team has just not quite achieved. They lost to G2 back in Toronto, right? They lost to RRQ in the grand finals of the Pacific earlier this season. So some questions on whether LAKIA could be a key piece of that team's revival. And here we have it, LAKIA officially back on the team. So what are they going to do? Are we assuming that Ash is simply going to be removed entirely, or is this going to be potentially a 6-man iteration when Ash is in the team sometimes and LAKIA is in the team other times? I would expect he is the player more than likely on the chopping block for LAKIA, but definitely creates a pretty fascinating end to the season to see him back in the team. You know, Munchkin, Foxy9, Texture, LAKIA, Karon. That is quite the team, I'm not going to lie, to take into the end of the season. Currently, these are the standings, right? So even with that said, Gen.G have still done perfectly fine. I mean, they did lose a game to RRQ again during the group alpha, but they're still 3-1. They're looking to try and be the top seed, of course, from that group. They will play Nongshim to try and get to 4-1. That's coming up in just a couple of days. If they do that, that. They're in a great spot. Of course, we'll see what roster they field on that occasion, and whether, you know, after assuming that they qualify for the World Championship, which you'd imagine that they definitely should. It's not yet guaranteed, but they've certainly scored enough points to put themselves in a really good position, and will likely continue to do so against Nongshim, and then of course when they get to the playoffs as well. But if Gen.G do go to the World Championship, are they going to field a rather interesting team there? Now, just to quickly mention, in China, the playoffs has already been locked in. Now, just the playoff dates here, we saw the bracket yesterday, so I'm not going to go through it in great detail again. If you guys aren't familiar, this is what the bracket looks like in the Chinese region, but I just wanted to say when it's due to begin, because as often is the case, the Chinese region is getting underway earlier than the rest of the world, and, well, 9th and 10th, that's when the playoffs are taking place in Shanghai on the first couple of days, and then the Stage 2 playoffs continue a little while later. So I'll just bring this up again on the big screen to show you guys the level of difference here, because they get underway. There are 4 games played on the 9th and the 10th, right? So they play, it's all gamers Tyloo, Edward, DRG, and then it's the losers games that are played on the 9th and the 10th of this month, so just in a few days' time. And then there's like a week and a half off before they then continue the tournament later on, slightly more in line with what the other regions are doing. So it's definitely an interesting one, isn't it? When there's only a couple of matches played in Shanghai, and then they're going to go to Chongqing for the rest of the tournament through the 24th of August, before then, of course, the top 4 spots in the region will qualify for Champions Paris in due course. So that's what's happening over there. Just quickly, Valorant Mobile, it's pretty big already, but it's kicking off in China with a $1.3 million prize pool. So, you know, just to note that if you thought Valorant in China wasn't already a big deal, it's going to become increasingly so as time goes on. Now, there's another interesting rumor around the Chinese region before we discuss the Zekken OXY stuff. So this guy says that EDG Simon is set to join a tier 2 team, and founded by some streamer and rapper, which is pretty wild. So anyway, this is real tasty, right? Because we know that Simon was on Edwards, he was dropped, he won the World Championship with them last year. Then they got rid of him for Jenny. Things haven't been going so well since then. Then they got rid of Jenny for Alphabet Man, Zed, JC. Then they brought Jenny back for ZJC. Simon is nowhere. We know that there was lots of drama with him and the rest of that team. Apparently he's joining a tier 2 team. So, well, we'll keep an eye on it, won't we? Because let's say his tier 2 team were to win Ascension, then all of a sudden we would have quite the storyline happening next year in the Chinese Valorant League. But let's talk about some of the drama that was going on. Of course, Sentinels played Cloud9 in the Americas the other day. OXY was absolutely trying his best, but it wasn't quite enough in the end, and it was OXY and Friends, and OXY and Friends eventually went down. And there was some debate, because we know how good Zekken is and how highly Zekken is rated, but OXY's also an excellent duelist, nobody is denying that. But there were some questions on, well, is OXY actually more talented than Zekken? Is OXY just straight up better than Zekken? Some of the numbers so far this stage may well indicate that, but as FNS says, it's actually very clear cut. You can see what Zekken's done on the highest stage. He's made and won best of 5s. Has OXY done either of those? Right, not necessarily. So as far as he's concerned, from a player perspective, this is not much of a debate.
Yeah. So, you know what's hilarious to me? Literally yesterday, and I was saying Zekken is the best duelist, right? And I saw like 400 people type OXY. And OXY is good as by the way. And I said that. OXY is good as but how are you going to tell me Zekken isn't better than OXY? How are you going to tell me that? Last time Sen played C9, Zekken absolutely C9 as well. I mean, it's also matchup based, right? This does not prove that OXY is better or Zekken is better. I shouldn't have even said it like that. But we've seen Zekken against the greatest players in the world dominate, okay? He's at least dominated most good teams. We do not have the same sample size at all for OXY. And yet people just straight up say OXY is better than Zekken. I don't understand that. Okay, be honest. If Zekken and OXY swap teams, who would you think is better? Who do you think does better? I think Zekken would hold his own. Kid is insane, bro. Zekken is too good, chat. Okay, if OXY was teamless, where would he go? Well, if OXY was teamless, where is he going? Like, say OXY gets out of jail. Let's just give him a get out of jail free card. Where does he go? Right now, this guy is in Alcatraz. He's in Alcatraz right now. So if he escaped Alcatraz, where is he headed? G2? No. Next. Yo, G2 is not replacing Jogama with OXY, bro. Lev. Holy if Lev got OXY somehow. No. You don't replace Sato. You keep Sato. What a name this is. This is like a superhero's name. Eduardo Kenzo Nagahama Sato. Jesus. Yeah, it's like actual aura name. No, he wouldn't replace Sato. He would replace one of these guys. He wouldn't replace King. He's a Caller and Viper. Tex, Sentinel. It would have to be one of these two players. It would have to be Calm or Okeanos because both are capable of playing scan agents. And then OXY comes in and then they're able to play double duelist. How are you guys saying Calm so confidently? You guys understand how much money this guy's made, right? Millions. Millions of dollars.
From a pure skill perspective, with OXY's potential and ability, yeah, sure, you can have a discussion on it. But I think there's no doubt that Zekken's, where Zekken currently sits in Valorant is definitely substantially above where OXY sits. And if you were to replace them, would OXY do the same job in that Sentinels team with a roster around him that, arguably has more talent than the other way around? Look, I think you probably take Zekken over OXY, but it's not to say that OXY isn't a real talent who's unfortunately still stuck in contract jail at Cloud9, maybe to some degree of his own doing. But this is just interesting. These are the numbers so far in this stage, basically. And you can see that OXY is leading the lines with a 1.22 rating, and I've ordered this by ACS for this one. So he has the highest ACS of anyone so far by quite some margin, actually. He's got about 280 ACS. The rates in second were 260, then Sato, then Asuna, then Spike actually from 2G, then Zekken. So look, Zekken's still top 6, OXY's top 1. If you sort by rating, OXY's actually 5th in rating with a 1.22, and Zekken's down here at a 1.11, which is obviously still very, very good. And look, if we sort by something like KD, then Zekken finds himself at a 1.26, OXY's actually at a 1.42, tied up there with Cryo. So yeah, you can look at some of the numbers and you can have a debate, but of course, the stats, the numbers don't tell you everything. And also, the exact role and the way that they play on the teams can be a little different. Thought this was kind of cool there. If I order by first kills per rounds, Marder actually tops the line with a 0.26, but after that, it's then OXY and Zekken right next to each other, right? So in some respects, they're actually pretty damn similar in terms of their execution. But very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Just one final thing, couple of scrimbucks. 100T, we know that they got humbled a little bit a few days ago with their kind of surprising result, and 100T with Kess in the roster bounced back in a scrim. They're up 11-1 against QOR. And we also had this one, Bonkar and the NRG guys were spotted down 7-16. Not sure who they were playing against, but maybe NRG not showing the promise in practice as we thought that they might have done when that new team was first formed. But very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.